Welcome to the Shield database. Please enter your access code. Welcome, Agent. Throughout his career as a costumed vigilante, Daredevil has encountered all manner of criminals, and though he almost always finds a way to defeat them, they always seem to come back for more. Every once in a while, however, the man without fear will come across a villain who is either too smart or too inept to willingly step into the ring for a second round with the protector of Hell's Kitchen. Sometimes these men do not try their luck again because they see that they will never win. However, more often than not, the lives they have chosen are too dangerous and they simply die before becoming too much of a thorn in Daredevil's side. Sometimes these deaths haunt Daredevil, however just as often he seems to understand that men such as these are too dangerous to continue. Here are 10 men who only fought Daredevil once. Paxton Page, the father of Karen Page, was a scientist who created a cobalt bomb and became a recluse after refusing to sell his creation to the U.S. government. He was branded a traitor and threw himself into his work as a replacement for the human connection, which was no longer possible due to his reputation. The result of this, however, was that Page ended up being driven mad due to cobalt radiation. He also gained the ability to manipulate radiation, however, which he used to mutate animals, fire energy blasts and imbue weapons with extra power. He took on the identity of Death's Head and drove unwelcome visitors away from his estate. When Karen and Daredevil visited Karen's childhood home, the vigilante soon came to blows with this new masked foe. However, in their very first battle, Paxton was killed by molten cobalt while pushing his daughter to safety. Before losing his mind, Paxton Page was a good man and was able to prove that one last time as his final act, ensuring that he would be remembered as a hero despite his villainy. Bruiser's name and origins are unknown. He is able to shift his center of gravity into any part of his body, effectively making his fists like wrecking balls. His ultimate goal in life is to one day fight the Incredible Hulk, and so he has created a list of heroes and villains in order of power levels. He hoped to make his way through the list one by one, knowing that as the fights got harder he would be becoming more and more proficient and effective, so that when he reached the top of the list he would have sufficient training to fulfill his dream. Daredevil encountered him during this process, however, and even though he struggled, he was ultimately able to defeat Bruiser, putting his plans on hold. This seems to have been enough to shatter Bruiser's dreams entirely, however, as he was last seen working as a doorman for the bar with no name. Before this crisis of confidence, however, Bruiser was in high demand and worked for everyone from AIM to the Serpent Society to Hydra, stitching their insignias to his costume as he went as badges of honor. Ten Fingers was formerly a member of the Hand, however he left the group and moved to New York's Chinatown as an illegal immigrant. Here he founded the Church of the Sheltering Hands and preached to other illegal immigrants, converting them to his cause by offering them power and salvation. His church eventually merged with other groups and he became the most powerful crime boss in Chinatown. He used hand magic to empower his followers, however this not only caught the attention of Daredevil, who confronted him, but also the Hand, who tried to kill him for stealing their mysticism and using it for personal gain. The Hand were not able to kill 10 Fingers, however, as they were beaten to it by the serial killer Muse, who maimed his body, turning it into the shape of a hand. The Ninja Clan then retrieved his corpse. Upon being returned to China, 10 Fingers was resurrected every night only to be murdered again and again by the Beast of the Hand as a never-ending punishment for the man who dared to steal from them. Howard Gideon murdered his young son and successfully framed a teenager named Joel Flood. Matt Murdock stepped in to defend Flood and during the case began to suspect Gideon for the crime. Matt was able to deduce that bite marks found on the child's body must have been Gideon's. However, before this was able to be verified, Gideon ripped out his own teeth and blamed Daredevil, telling everyone he could that the vigilante had beaten them out of his mouth. With both Matt and Daredevil being accused of attacking a grieving father and no evidence to the contrary, Joel Flood was found guilty and sentenced to death. 7 years later, Matt attended the execution and was then able to prove Gideon was guilty when he admitted everything to Daredevil, not knowing the police were listening. This eventual justice, however, came too late for Joel Flood, who had been pronounced dead earlier that evening. Gideon himself was then arrested and sentenced to death, spending his last days in a prison cell being haunted by visions of Daredevil. The Coyote was an expert smuggler who was recruited by Bullseye and put through the same procedure which created the supervillain known as the Spot. Now armed with the ability to teleport, the Coyote was aimed at Daredevil and tasked with making him believe he was insane. The Coyote placed Matt's father's skull in his desk drawer and transported his incarcerated ex-wife Mila Donovan into his bedroom before returning her to the mental hospital before anyone was able to notice. Matt then believed that he had desecrated his father's corpse without remembering doing so, and also assumed that he must have been hallucinating due to mental illness when he encountered his ex-wife. When he eventually encountered the Coyote, however, Daredevil quickly realized the deception and battled the criminal, during which time he was able to free all of the Coyote's prisoners, including Spot, who had been tortured by the Coyote for months. Spot was able to teleport the Coyote away and presumably killed him in retribution. In Daredevil's very early career, he encountered a man named Larks. Before costumed villains and super-powered criminals were commonplace in New York, Larks was Wilson Fisk's top assassin, having been trained and cultivated by Fisk since his youth for exactly that role. As a result, Larks finds pleasure in cruelty and will rarely emote or even speak if he is not on an assignment. After killing an untold number of people as though it was nothing, Larks found himself facing off against a man without fear. In his early days, Matt had significantly less self-control and significantly more anger within him than he does after years of experience, and after Larks threatened to kill a young girl named Mickey who Matt had become friends with, Matt was able to deflect one of Larks' bullets with his billy club, sending it directly back at him, hitting him between the eyes and killing him. The serial killer known as Muse is unique in that all of his killings are used in the creation of works of art. His first piece of artwork unveiled was a mural which contained the blood of over 100 victims, while his second featured the defaced corpses of 6 Inhuman who had been posed to make it seem as though they were performing mundane tasks. He was eventually captured by Daredevil and Agent Frank McGee and subsequently imprisoned by the Inhumans, but not before he was able to gouge out the eyes of Blind Spot, Daredevil's then sidekick. He eventually escaped the Inhumans' prison, however, and began painting graffiti which was several stories tall across various New York landmarks as a form of protest against the Kingpin becoming mayor. This, however, led to Daredevil and eventual Blind Spot hunting for him, and unfortunately for Muse, Blind Spot found him first, and with the help of hand magic, Daredevil's apprentice was able to kill Muse. Roscoe Sweeney was a boxing promoter who used blackmail and extortion in order to fix his fights. After falling on hard times, Jack Murdoch began working for Sweeney, something he had swore he would never do due to his reputation. Under Sweeney, however, Jack began to win more and more fights and gained a reputation as a comeback fighter, often beating men half his age. When it was revealed that Sweeney had been fixing Jack's fights, however, Jack felt emasculated and wanted to prove to his son that he had a father he could be proud of. Sweeney approached him and told him to lose his next fight, but Jack went on to win, disobeying the fixer. Sweeney promptly had Jack killed, and this event led to Matt Murdock donning the Daredevil costume for the first time in order to get justice for his father. Upon seeing this new devil-like figure, however, Sweeney ran in fear and suffered a fatal heart attack in the New York subway, ending his threat to the citizens of New York. Nuke is an example of a criminal who has only faced Daredevil once simply because he has only been hired to do so once. Nuke was an exceptional soldier who was recruited into Project Homegrown and given similar abilities to Captain America. When the Kingpin's plans to destroy Daredevil's life failed, he contacted some corrupt military officials and was able to hire Nuke to kill Daredevil. Nuke blew apart Hell's Kitchen in the hopes of defeating the man without fear, but he eventually made enough noise for the Avengers to take notice and capture him. He promptly escaped their custody and went after Daredevil again, only to be intercepted by Captain America and subsequently shot by a military chopper. Daredevil hoped to get Nuke to hospital, however, when it became apparent that Nuke was going to die regardless, he took him to the offices of the Daily Bugle hoping that he would testify to the Kingpin's involvement in the attacks. Nuke instead, however, seemingly died before they arrived, and Daredevil was never confronted with him again. After years of trying and failing to defeat Spider-Man, Quentin Beck was diagnosed with terminal cancer and decided to focus on driving one of New York's heroes mad as his swan song. Deciding that he would likely fail if he went up against Spider-Man again, he settled on Daredevil. He found out Daredevil's identity from the Kingpin and began a campaign of trickery designed to convince Matt that a newly born baby was in fact the Antichrist. He then had Matt's best friend Foggy Nelson framed for murder and convinced his former lover Karen Page that she was HIV positive. He also hired Bullseye to locate Daredevil and the child, which led to Karen's death, making Mysterio indirectly responsible for the single most painful experience of Matt's life. Mysterio then revealed all to Matt, believing that he would kill him, thereby winning by making Matt cross a line he had sworn never to cross. When Matt refused to kill him, however, Mysterio's plan was ruined, and in an act of despair, he took his own life. And